Shock the system.
And we are live this week. You always got to steal the show.
What did I do?
With the smiling and being all happy and everything. Ladies and gentlemen, that Wonder Woman, Jamie Dolan, and with us this week. It is a great honor, a great privilege. We have royalty. We have the one, the only, Ron Frenz. It took us.
Hi there. It's a pleasure to be with you both.
Oh my God. Dude, it took forever to get you here. I thought you were ducking and dodging me.
Royalty?
Yes.
Royalty?
Okay. Look, you worked on them all. Okay. You worked on them all. Spidey, Cap, Thor, Superman. Okay. Co-creator of the New Warriors, and we all know what happened with them guys and what caused it all. You are definitely royalty. We all see your pinups.
I have been in the car with the engine running when several things have happened in the comics industry. Yes, but I'm an unindicted co-conspirator at best.
Dude, I do have a quick question. Eric Yako from Alternate Universe LLC and from Alternate Reality Entertainment. He can't be here tonight. He can't chime in. He wants to know superhero battle royal. Where would Thor fare?
Oh, I think Thor would fare very, very well in a superhero battle royal. Sure. No, he'd be here. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Really? Okay. All right. I had to ask. That's all. I did.
Well, what do you think, Lou?
Well, it depends on who's in it. I mean, all right. Now, I already had a conversation with Mr. Frenz. He knows what's in the Geek Layer.
Yeah.
Okay. He said he will not.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
Okay. He said that he will. Oh, and Ali Montgomery, our other co-host, is jumping in. What's up, Ali? He already said he will not hold it against me. But if Superman was in the Battle Royal, we all know where my heart lies. If we take Superman out of the Battle Royal, then maybe I would pick Thor. He's right here.
Okay, so let's say Superman doesn't exist.
Well, why? I mean, but see, the issue for me, I've always been on the end of it, and I know not everybody agrees with this, and that's fine. That's what makes horse races. But I was not the guy who decided that Superman had a weakness to magic. And if there's one thing that was made very clear to me in my 7 years on Thor with Mr. Tom DeFalco, it was that, hey, Ron, it's a magic hammer. So it's a magic hammer, and if Superman has a weakness to magic, the whole idea that he could just grab the hammer and catch it in his hand, the idea that he might be worthy, now that's something that I think is worth exploring. But by the same token, in a battle royal where Thor is battling Superman for some reason, I don't know whether that would come into play or not. You know,
I gotta change my shirt. I'll be right back.
What is on your shirt? I can't. My screen's too little.
What else would be on my shirt?
I don't know.
Superman's one of my favorite characters. I mean, I grew up like everybody else, as a kid, I started out on Superman and Batman and Robin and the TV series and George Reeves, and I am second to no one as a fan of Superman. I've been fortunate enough to drive down to Metropolis, Illinois, a couple of times to see the Superman Museum. I was fortunate enough to be a guest one year. Brett Breeding got me in, to drop a name, got me in as a guest. So I've enjoyed the Superman
tonight, and of course, Angry Geek super fan Aviva. Hi, lady, how are you? And Michael, it's kind of like romper room here, romper do. How you doing, Michael? Nice for you to jump in. And of course, John Davis, Superman is definitely worthy.
I would think
and we have another honorable guest tonight, the one and only Ian Chase Nichols.
Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, Ian is a great friend of the Angry Geeks, a huge supporter, and I love Ian to death. And I got to talk to this young gentleman soon. And John Davies, pure heart and fights for all. Yes, Superman is definitely can wield the hammer for sure. So, Ron, out of all the characters that you worked on, everything, and like I said, you worked on them all. Who was your absolute favorite?
I don't know.
Come on.
I'm a big Spider-Man fan from way back. But 7 years on Thor has given me an incredible appreciation for that character. I mean, we co-created Eric with Tom DeFalco. So Eric is very dear to my heart. Mayday is very dear to my heart because I was in early on with DeFalco developing Mayday. So all those characters they're my kids. You know, can you pick a kid? Can you pick your favorite animal, Jamie?
Yes. It's a no-brainer.
Okay.
I mean, like Nero, my Doberman, is above all and everything in my life.
Wow.
I do have a favorite kid. Even I might love him more than my actual kid.
I did not see that coming. Did not see that. Okay.
I have no shame admitting. Yeah.
Wow.
He's my heart.
Well, what's the one character that you didn't work on that you wanted to work on? Even though I'm pretty sure you worked on just about all of them.
Captain America. I would have loved to have done a run on Captain America with Tom DeFalco or Mark Ruffalo or somebody like that. Yeah, that's a character that's always been very close to my heart. And the times I've gotten to do him is guest starring pieces and some Avengers pieces and things like that. I love drawing the character, but I just have a real fondness for the character. So yeah, with certain writers, that would have been a Roger Stern or Tom DeFalco or Mark Grunwald. That would have been a real pleasure. I would have loved it. It's one of the regrets of my storied career that I never did get to do a run on Captain America. We did a couple of fill-ins, things like that, but that was it. Wow.
Well, favorite storyline
of that I've worked on, or that I'm as a fan?
Actually, both. What's their favorite storyline? Just in general, what was the one story that wow, I love this, and what was the favorite storyline that you worked on?
Well, I mean, as a young person, as a fan, I mean, the Master Planner was incredible. I was a big fan of all the Spider-Man stuff in the Romita Buscema Mooney period, where they were introducing Silvermane and Man Mountain Marco and a lot of the gangster stuff and everything. Which I guess you could encapsulate that to the Petrified Tablet arc or something like that. Those are some of the real sweet spots of me for Spider-Man. Around the time that they did the two spectacular magazines, the black and white one and the full color one. When I look back on that stuff, that was a real era of Spider-Man that has always meant a lot to me. I don't know. I'm a pretty general comic book fan. I loved Sal Buscema's early work on the Avengers. Some of the stuff, the early stuff he did with Roy Thomas, with Kang, and the Grandmaster and everything. You know, so those are some of the things that kind of jump out at me. But you know, as far as stuff I've worked on, like again, they're kind of all my kids. I'm not going to ask you again, Jamie, but they're kind of all my children.
I think
I'm very proud. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, everybody watching the show probably knew right away when you asked me that too. They're like, she's going to say Nero.
That was a mistake. I am very proud of the amazing Spider-Girl run. The first volume of the trade paperback, we were very careful because we were fortunate and knew that these were going to be collected in trade paperbacks. So every 6 issues, every issue is an independent unit of entertainment, but they all fit together into arc. So that we wanted to make sure that each of the trade paperbacks would have an ending. So there's a beginning, a middle, and end to every issue, but then there's also a beginning, a middle, and end of the arc for every 6 issues. And they were collected into trade paperbacks, and I'm very proud of that work. I mean, Tom DeFalco's a hell of a writer. I'm a big fan of his, as well as being, fortunate enough to be his creative partner and friend. But as a writer, I don't think there's a technically better writer in the comics, in any writing field, to tell you the truth. The guy just knows his business. So we were able to structure these things correctly, and I just think there's some wonderful stories in there, and I think it's a terrific character. It was very humbling to be able to create a character that late in the game that really connected to the readership, had an incredibly loyal readership, and lasted as long as it did, to tell you the truth. So
when something like that comes about, I mean, did the company come to you and say, hey, we want you guys to create something like this? Or did you and Tom sit down and say, you know what, I think we need to pull ourselves together and come up with something new? And
it's usually a combination of factors. Contrary to fan belief, rarely are you in a level of creative personnel. I'm sure there are some. I've never been there. But I'm sure there's a level of creative personnel where you can approach the company and say, I would like to do this. And they would go, oh, that sounds wonderful. We'll start a new title for you. I've never been there. I'm sure those people do exist. I've heard that it does happen. In the case of Spider-Girl, Tom was the regular writer for a brief time on What If, that volume of What If that Spider-Girl was introduced in. And it was a story that kind of bugged him. He had it in the back of his head since he worked on the Clone Saga that, that could be fun. So he wanted to craft it as a What If story. And to my fortune, he contacted me. I was on Superman at the time. And he said, would you be interested in working on this with me? And I said, sure. So we started, as we always do, we started discussing it and throwing ideas back and forth and everything. So I had a hand in the early development of it. And we had fun with that one issue. And we figured maybe there'd be a sequel down the road, possibly. But, we kind of left it all on the court. And then Bob Harris, the editor-in-chief of Marvel at the time, contacted us and said, we're interested in doing something. The original marketing was supposed to be 3 MC2 titles that would be in those plastic packs in like some mass market chain. Okay, that was the original idea of marketing those things. It never happened. The sales department kind of dropped the ball on it. It never actually happened. But the original concept was these 3 bags, 3 comics in a bag deals at like a major chain, like a Walmart or a Sam's Club or something like that, would be a line of books that would appeal to young people because the characters would be teenage and would be kind of divested of all the history of Marvel, although it would be tied into the Marvel universe. So you wouldn't need to read volumes and volumes of work that get caught up. You're in on the ground floor, even though you're dealing with the history of the Marvel universe and such. And so that was the original concept of it. He approached us to do Spider-Girl, and that we were shocked. I mean, apparently when he approached Tom, he said, "I understand you guys have a proposal for him." Have a proposal.
That like scared me.
They assumed we wanted to do a series, and that was just based on the fact that I had done a lot of character sketches and everything just for the one issue. I tend to over prepare for certain things. So I had done character sketches of everybody in the supporting cast and things like that, and we had developed it as a pilot. That was the only way Tom and I knew how to approach it. Was that, let's say Spider-Man ended when he and I left the book back in the 80s, and we're being rebooted as the next generation. And I think because Tom and I love the characters and we had a history with the characters, I think the heart and soul of it, the enjoyment we had and the love we had of the characters, I think came through. And it sold better than most what ifs. So we went on from there. When the time came to actually do the series, Pat Olive had done Untold Tales of Spider-Man and had done a wonderful job with it. And the minute we knew we were going to do Avengers Next and that Kevin Masterson was going to be one of the lead characters in Avengers Next, I wanted to do Avengers Next because Eric was always a character that kind of haunted me and everything. As much as I loved Mayday, I knew she'd be in good hands with Pat. So we handed that off to Pat. He did a fantastic job for the first, 3-4 years or something on the book. Did a great job. And I enjoyed working on a Next for a year. It was one of my favorite gigs, actually.
What got you into comics? I mean, most people I saw this character on television, or I just happened to walk into a store and somebody bought me a comic. What brought you to passion? What was the first?
Well, I have a
comic
brother that's 3 years older, and he and I have talked about it. So a couple of comic books made it into the house. I leaned artistic early on. I can't remember a time when I didn't draw. I don't. Some people have a moment in their life where they discovered art or drawing. I don't remember that. I was born with a pencil in my hand, and boy, was my mom. Sorry about that. I can't remember a time when I didn't draw. So I think the art was a big draw for it. And I've always I took to the characters. My introduction to Spider-Man, I believe, was the old 67 cartoon in syndication early in the mornings. We discovered that in grade school, and I think we saw that first, and then I started to find the comics and stuff. And so I've been a Spider-Man fan since I was like 6 or 7 years old, rabid Spider-Man fan. But yeah, the superheroes in general, Superman and Batman and all that kind of jazz, that was very early on. I think the World's Finest that my brother and I have kind of decided was the first comic that made it into the house. I believe I just bought a copy not too long ago, and I think it was like 1964. So that would have made him like 7 years old. So, he was more than likely responsible for putting that in front of me. And so I really have no memory of not being into superheroes and into comics. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of comics, it's time for our top 10. And our top 10 this week is top 10 covers that I picked out from my own collection. This week's top 10 is brought to us by Alternate Universe, LLC in Milford and New Haven. And Jamie did not pick out any of these top 10s because usually and she went away. Usually when I ask Jamie if to pick out a top 10, she doesn't. So we're going to sit right back. We're going to watch this really quick video for our top 10 iconic comic book covers. have it. Top 10 covers that I picked out of my collection. Now you're probably wondering, well, you have Ron as a guest. Why didn't you pick out any of those comics? Because I'll tell you why. First, I didn't want Jamie to call me a butt kisser. I didn't want any of our viewers to call me a butt kisser. And I really didn't want Ron to call me a butt kisser anyway. So that's why I wasn't.
Would any of us really do that?
Yes. Yes.
Lewis,
Because
you're a butt kisser.
yes, see, told you. Because you know Ali, who's supposed to
be. You're not a butt kisser. That's
you see, right there. And you know Ali, who is supposed to be sharing this and probably looking at comments and stuff. And of course, Superman was number one. See,
yeah,
Aviva?
that's exactly. Aviva took the words right out of my mouth.
And so that is why I didn't pick out which was. If you go to our Instagram page,
I'm old. I'm 60 years old already.
Okay.
So when knowing you're a DC fan and you're talking about top 10 iconic covers, I'm picturing there's going to be a whole bunch of Nick Cardy and there's going to be a whole bunch of Kurt Swan and nothing. It's the modern stuff. What are you doing with the modern?
No, I did throw in my Silver Surfer number 4 because I do like people to be jealous.
That would probably make my list, but I mean I have a lot of other. Yeah, there would have been some Nick Cardy Aquaman in there somewhere. Come on.
Oh yeah. I do have. Then again, a lot of those books are upstairs, and I was going through the short boxes and long boxes.
So you were lazy about it.
Yes, I was. Well, I gave Ron a short tour of the Geek Lair. Did I or did I not?
Let's qualify this then, Lewis. This was the top 10 comics that were easily accessible. That sort of kind of like for this week.
They were not on the rack.
The hold on. He didn't have to go upstairs.
Exactly.
The
ones that were in arm's reach. The ones that
there's one of Ron's books right here. That's one of Ron's books right here on the rack. Yes. So it would definitely be whatever was accessible. Yes. Okay. So, and yes. And look, like I said, this book made the top 10 too.
No, it
honorable.
Didn't. No, it didn't. I saw the video. It was.
It's the top 10 easily reachable ones right now.
I got an honorable mention because he decided to turn it the waist.
Right there. Okay. So, Ron, when you're drawing a cover,
yes.
Do you? Of course, you have the story outline. You know the story. You have everything in there. How does the cover come about? I mean, how do you sit there? I mean, do you create the cover? Do you sit down with the writer, create the cover? Does the editor come up to you? And how does these iconic covers, how do they come about?
Well, in most cases, there isn't. Usually, I would consult the Falco. Usually, you're also dealing with the editor. So the editor usually has a say on the cover. And I tend to do sketches. I usually do at least 2, if not more like 4 smaller conceptual drawings to give him some choices to go different directions, like a pinup one that's actually a scene, one that's more symbolic. You try to change it up a little bit and present them to the editor, and the editor makes the final call. So it's a process like any. It's a community creative process thing, like in an ad agency or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We have a quick question from Joe Goulart. Ron, what character is your best as a first appearance character?
Meaning characters that I helped develop, that I created, I guess. Joe.
Yeah, go with that.
I would probably Thunderstrike. It would be between Thunderstrike and Spider-Girl. Those are the most popular. We've been very fortunate. We've developed a few characters that have actually kind of hit a positive note with the fandom. Silver Sable was Tom and I on Spider-Man. The Puma, hit a note with other writers, and they used them for other things. So we've been very, very fortunate that way. So, but Eric is always going to be very, very close to my heart, and Kevin as well, his son. So, yeah. So as far as characters I've created, I'd say we put a lot of work and a lot of love and a lot of attention into Eric Masterson, developing him during the Thor run. And we never intended for Eric to get his own book. Much like with Spider-Girl, the sales department came to Tom DeFalco and said, we understand you're going to be wrapping up the Eric Masterson storyline. And Tom said, yeah, that's true. And he goes, we were thinking about Eric getting his own book. He's very popular. And even the fans that want real Thor back, which we did too, don't want to lose Eric even as a supporting character. So would you consider spinning him off into his own book? And Tom said, what would that be? And they said, well, that's up to you. So again, by request, we put our heads together and developed Thunderstrike. And it was unusual for the team on Thor to move wholesale over to the spinoff. Usually, when you spin a character off, like with New Warriors, Tom and I developed New Warriors, introduced them in Thor, but when they got their own book, fortunately, it was by Fabian Nicieza and Mark Bagley, and they ran with it and turned it into a huge hit. Same with Silver Sable. Silver Sable was introduced in Spider-Man, and they gave it to Greg Wright and Stephen Butler and Gordon Purcell, and they all did a terrific job with the character, developing the character as a series. So usually that's how it happens. So Thunderstrike was unusual in that we all wanted to go with Eric and see what was going to go on over there. I mean, it wasn't just Tom and I. It was also Al Milgrom, the inker, and Rick Parker, the letterer, and Mike Rockwitz, the colorist. Everybody, we moved over. Thor was a whole new team, and we all moved over to Thunderstrike. And Thunderstrike sold incredibly well. We got caught up in the Ron Perlman disaster, where one of Perlman's people decided at a meeting that if you cancel half the Marvel line, the half that's left sells twice as well.
Okay.
This would have been some of the decision making that ended up leading to the bankruptcy. Tom DeFalco laughed when that was brought up in a meeting. He laughed out loud and went, "Oh my God, you're serious!" And that was how he ended up being asked to leave his position. But all books like Thunderstrike, War Machine, Force Works, they were all selling very, very well. There was no reason sales-wise to cancel them. They were canceled because they were the spin-off books. They were the second-generation books, and that's why we lost them all. And it was very deflating because you do a book hoping to connect with your audience and hoping for good sales. We had all that. We got canceled anyway. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, do you think they would actually listen to the creators? Because you're more connected to the fans, because you're out there, you're at the conventions, you're talking to the fans where the salespeople aren't. Okay, they're more behind the scenes. You're there.
Salespeople. It was Perlman's money people. He was like in perfume or something like that. Okay. He was just a businessman. He was known for buying up businesses and then chopping them up and selling them off in pieces. There's Sprinkles back there.
I can see it. Is that the one that's meowing?
That's Sprinkles getting a drink of water. Anyway, it was made by pure money people who were treating comics like cans of beans. That if you cancel half of them and the half that's left sells twice as well. That DeFalco tried to explain to them it's not how it works with comics. I mean, if you cancel a kid's favorite comic, he doesn't just pick another favorite comic. He spends that money on a soda and a slice of pizza, that kind of thing. But they were not about to listen. One of the most frustrating things about that is that Thunderstrike was canceled because they weren't going to cancel Thor. But then just within a couple of years, they did the Heroes Reborn thing where they canceled Thor because none of the Image guys had an idea specifically for Thor. So that made me crazy. When I heard that they were canceling Thor, then if you were going to cancel Thor, if you would have done it 2 years, 3 years sooner, we could still be running on Thunderstrike right now. That kind of. So that was a little frustrating, but it wasn't a creative decision. It was a business decision, and those always suck.
Yeah. How did you feel about the movies?
Oh, I love the films. I've been enjoying Marvel films quite a bit. Yeah.
All right. Did you think Chris did a good job bringing Thor to life?
Chris Evans did a great job. Chris Hemsworth did a fantastic job. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the development of the Thor, I understand why they've developed Thor the way they have in the films, because the film people don't think the way we do in the comics industry. In the comics industry, we think more like TV people think. We're telling a serial. We're serialized, okay? Mm-hmm. One of the things that made that incredibly obvious to me was when I was reading articles about the development of Iron Man 2, and one of the producers said, yeah, the comic really didn't give us much of a clear way forward.
What?
And I'm like, there's 50 years of Iron Man stories. What are you talking about? But they think of it differently. They think of it as in 2-hour blocks. So, in some ways, I'm a little sorry that they've made Thor as colloquial as he is, because one, that was kind of Eric's space, and two, what I would love to see is I would love to see them introduce the Marvel version of Hercules into the MCU universe. And if they do
Hold it. There you go.
There you go. But if they do that now, Thor won't really be the straight man, because the relationship between Thor and Hercules was always Thor was the straight man and Hercules was the screw up. And because at one point I remember thinking it would have been great if the Rock's Hercules movie would have been a bigger hit, and then Marvel could have just rung him up and said, hey, how would you like to play Hercules again, but present day as the Marvel version, and then interact with Chris Hemsworth, and that could have been a lot of fun, but something like that could still be a lot of fun. But Thor has kind of taken the Hercules role now. He's kind of the looser, sometimes comedic version that is a little bit more like what Marvel's Hercules was.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you say, because Leighton's miniseries, 2 Hercules miniseries, they were some of my. I have multiple copies of those. If actually for Father's Day, my daughter just bought me the first appearance of Hercules, and I love the character, obviously, and I think that now that you're saying it, Chris Evans' Thor kind of reminds me of Hercules. Now I never made the connection before.
His version has kind of become that as they made him more colloquial, which is fine because as he's interacting with Earth people, it makes perfect sense that he would. He loves Earth people, so it makes sense he would become more colloquial. But at the same time, I thought the first Thor movie was fantastic. I thought the first Captain America movie was fantastic. I think the treatment of Iron Man. I've enjoyed all of the films. I'm not a cherry picker, because having worked on the characters and have to practically realize that these are properties, these are characters that are handled differently by different writers and everything. I'm incredibly forgiving of the cinematic treatments of these characters. Of course, I also grew up in the 70s. I was in my double digits in the 70s when we had Reb Brown as Captain America and Nicholas Hammond as Spider-Man and Peter Hooton as Doctor Strange and of course Bixby and Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk. And they were nowhere near what the potential of the property could be. But I loved Eric Kramer as Thor in Incredible Hulk Returns. Tom and I were on Thor when that aired originally, and Tom and I were laughing on the phone because when he went into the office the next day, nobody would make eye contact with him because they were assuming he hated it or something. But he and I both thought Eric Kramer did a terrific job playing the character. I would have watched the hell out of that show. I would have loved it.
I remember. Well, when I watched it, it was just what turned me off was when he took out the and he took he took the hammer and he screamed Odin, and then he became Thor. I was like, what the hell was that?
Well,
At least
they were doing a very different thing with Don Blake interacting with Thor and all that, with all of which, I thought was an interesting approach. But if you're creating a series, and you already have the Incredible Hulk where the guy transforms, having the two characters be able to interact and talk makes a lot more sense for a TV series. And frankly, I was not surprised that they made him a Viking warrior, although at one point he does refer to himself as the son of Odin. But see, I never thought we would see toys of the mighty Thor because he is a pagan god. I mean, I am frankly surprised that you can walk into a store and buy 27 different varieties of Thor's hammer, because there are still places on this planet where Thor is seriously worshipped. So it's how would America feel if we were if Son of God comics had taken off and we were buying Jesus action figures and all this kind of stuff? I mean, I'm surprised. I'm frankly surprised. But I also completely understand why in the movies they talk about the fact that, Odin actually says, we're not gods. We live, we die. And Loki says, the aside, give or take a few thousand years, that kind of, they were a race of superior beings that were the basis for the Norse myths, that kind of thing. But again, how would we feel if somebody said, oh, this guy, his name really wasn't Jesus, it was Jesus, and he's just a superpowered being that was the basis for the Christian mythology. I'm surprised. I'm quite frankly, I'm a little surprised that it all took off the way it did. I'm gratified. I'm glad. I enjoy it. But, I never thought it would happen. I really didn't.
Okay. When you're drawing, when you're creating, what goes through your mind? Do you give each character
worms go through my mind?
Do you give each character their own voice as you're drawing?
Yeah.
All right. Give me.
Often at one point I went so far at a convention and it got derided the way it deserved to get derided. But at one point I was at a convention with Joe Duffy when we were working together on Star Wars.
Okay.
And I tried to explain my mindset when I'm drawing and when I'm storytelling. And I made the mistake of saying that in a lot of ways, I feel like Mark Hamill and I have shared the experience of playing Luke Skywalker. And even Joe Duffy looked at me and went, what? And I deserve that. But there is an element of that too. There is an element of acting, and there is an element of of storytelling, of clear storytelling that is an element of what we do. And so yeah, I get to play Peter Parker. I get to play Mayday Parker. So come on,
give me your best Mayday Parker voice.
Well, luckily she's a very mature 16-year-old girl. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, you kind of have to. I enjoy it. What's interesting to me is I actually enjoy handling younger characters because of what we do for a living, and because I think most comics fans can relate to this. I have kept that child part of me alive by necessity. So I remember what it was like to be 16. I remember being 90% hormones and rage and confusion and frustration. So I enjoyed very much doing not just Mayday, but the Buzz, Jack Jameson. That character when we did that mini series, I was loving that because he was all about that teen frustration. And it behooves us all as adults to stay connected to that, especially if you're a parent, which I'm not. But if you're a parent, it always behooves you to remember what it was like to be the teenager.
I don't think Lou and I ever left being teenagers.
There you go. See, I think a lot of any kind of fandom tends to keep that child alive. Yeah, and I think that's important. I really do.
No, I mean, I'm sitting surrounded by toys and comics, and she dresses up every weekend. I mean, no, we definitely did not grow
Amen.
up.
Amen.
Hey, I'm the coolest mom in the whole school. So,
There you go.
That's true. That's pretty much, that's very true. And
but it comes from a lot of life experience. I mean, Tom DeFalco will tell you that a lot of the conversations between Pete and Mayday were conversations that he heard between his brother and his niece, because his brother had served in the armed forces, and at one point his niece was considering being a policeman.
Okay.
And he was dead set against it because he wanted her to be safe, and yet he had signed up and gone overseas, that kind of thing. So, it also, the best writers, the best creative people are the people that have their antenna up and are paying attention to other people's life experiences as well. And I think it's made me very empathetic. I'm pretty good just as a human being at kind of understanding where other people are coming from, being able to walk a mile in somebody's shoes. And I often find myself in family situations and with friends saying, yeah, but you have to understand where he's coming from, because, think about this. He went through this, and this. So this is an outgrowth of that. And, I think if you train yourself to listen more than talk, it can't help but make you more empathetic.
Okay.
Or empathic, I guess. Whatever it might be. Yeah. I don't know what the term is.
It's empathetic. I think it's sympathetic.
It's sympathetic.
Jamie usually helps me with big words.
Yeah, Lou struggles with those. That's really why he keeps me around. Make sure his grammar is on point.
Yeah.
And numbers. Jamie, Jamie, read this contract. Jamie, do this.
There you go. I could do something like that myself, to tell you the truth.
Jamie, check the email. I just wrote something. Make sure I spelled everything right.
That's right. See?
It's like 4 paragraphs that are one run-on sentence.
A little bit of
like, Lou, where's your punctuation?
That's right.
We had to write this an agreement, and I wrote it, typed it all out, and Rose, my wife, looked at it and she goes, "Give it to Jamie." Good? I said to Jane. She goes, "No, it's not good. I have her write it." I'm like, "Oh,
yep,
that bad."
I hate all the grown-up stuff. I hate it.
Oh, I can't stand it. If you could have one superpower or be one of the characters that you created, which character would that be? We all know Jamie would be Wonder Woman, but who would you be? Which one character?
I don't know. I mean, in general, the safe one is Superman because he's got all the super senses and all that kind of stuff. I've always thought, it sounds like I'm going to keep hammering this nail because we just spoke about it. But if I had the power to instill empathy in people,
mm-hmm.
I think I would. In the idea that, you could say, if you could concentrate and make somebody realize what an asshole they're being right now.
That would be honestly the greatest superpower.
Yeah.
And I never thought about that, but if you could make somebody feel the impact of their behavior, if you could get them outside their own head for a second, that serves you incredibly well in life, to be able to step outside your own anger or your own point of view, your own frustration, and realize that, you know, there's one of the reasons I'm a bachelor is because I'm not great in relationships because I don't defend myself enough. I don't stand up for myself enough, I guess. You know, I don't argue well. I clam up because I don't want to say anything that I'll regret later, you know? And yet the best relationships are people who could say the worst things in the world to each other and then get up the next morning and make up, you know, that kind of thing. But I've never been able to do that. So.
Oh, wow. Jamie, do you have anything?
Lou, you left Lou speechless, and that's when he turns it to me. Too happy. He's like, I don't even know how to respond to that.
So you're a cosplayer primarily, Jamie, or is that?
Yeah. I'm the cosplayer.
Have you ever done Spider-Girl?
No. So I've just Hella, Wonder Woman, and Catwoman.
Hella, Wonder Woman, Catwoman. Well, I saw your helicopter on the opening. Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah,
I got
that's
the
right. And I think that was my first one. Oh, Lou, now you're like digging.
Yeah, no, I'm gone. I got nothing. Ron just made me speechless. Yes, that was your first Hella costume. She has two versions of
Hella.
I
knew her one. More cool. Like I would say more movie accurate. But
yeah, I get a lot of enjoyment from seeing cosplayers. It's wonderful. There have been a couple of young women that I've had some interaction with Spider-Girl that. I mean, they do a wonderful job as ambassadors to the character. I mean, Spider-Girl hasn't been published in years. I mean, she appeared in that Spider-Girls miniseries and stuff. But there's, you know, a couple of young women. There's one in particular, a young woman named Kelly McDaniel out of Atlanta that, I mean, she takes being an ambassador of the character very seriously. And, you know, she actually is doing more to keep the character in front of people and discussed on podcasts and everything than DeFalco and I are doing currently. You know, that kind of so it's really neat. It's wonderful, and she's a true fan of the character. You know, so it's nice to see. It's very humbling when
it's cool to be able to bring them to life too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, but I'm also a big fan of, you know, becoming your favorite character, whether you're, you know, I mean, I don't have the build for it anymore, but my young niece, I would go out with her and I bought one of those padded Spider-Man outfits and I put a sign around my neck that said, "We'll fight crime for food." So I was homeless Spider-Man and I walked around with my niece. People were going, "Well, what about the movies?" And I said, "I didn't see anything. That no, you can't sign a contract with a mask on, pal." I got none of that. You know.
What did you think of Into the Spider-Verse?
The animated film?
Yeah,
I loved it. I thought it was
really
that. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I've liked almost all the Spider-Man movies to one degree or another. You know,
you said almost. That's almost
no,
all.
to one degree or another is the operative term there.
Okay, if you could rate the people, the actors who portrayed.
No, you're not going to get me to do that.
Well, I'll tell you, Tom Holland is.
I'm on Facebook. If I do that, I'm going to get on my own Facebook.
That's going to open a big can of worms.
I don't. Yeah, I there's something. I've liked them all to varying degrees. I'll tell you one thing. The second young guy. What's
Andrew Garfield?
Andrew Garfield. I thought he was terrific. I had no problem with him. He looks like an older Ditko Peter Parker to me. Yep. I enjoyed his performance most in the second one, in Amazing Spider-Man 2, because the whole treatment of Pete as the disaffected modern teen kind of went past me a little bit, you know, that kind of thing. But the second, there were parts of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 that I just enjoyed the hell out of. By the end of it, it was a big loud mess. But as far as how he played the character, especially in costume. I thought it was terrific. I really enjoyed his performance, and they got the costume back to more like it's supposed to look.
Yeah, the costumes. The costume was definitely more back to being out of the comics.
The thing that's interesting with reboots is if they got really close to the core material the first time, the second time they're going to move away from it. The first time, the genius, the real moment of genius in the first Spider-Man movie by Sam Raimi was how he got the audience on board with Pete when the thief runs past him. And he, the guy that just ripped him off from the arena and all this kind of jazz, and the thief runs past him, and the guy says, "You could have taken that guy apart." And he goes, "I missed the part where that's my problem." And the audience laughs and applauds because Pete is standing up for himself. And I just sat there, wow, this is the moment where the people that don't already know the story are on board with Pete, like he just did the right thing. He just stuck it to this guy. And boy, are they going to be surprised in a couple of minutes, and are they going to go on the ride with Pete? And it was beautifully done. But because they got that so right in the first movie, it made sense when they rebooted it in Amazing Spider-Man that it was going to get all convoluted and weird, and it was going to have to be different and separate and all this kind of jazz. And I thought it was diluted, a lot. Plus what they were trying to do with his dad and all this other kind of stuff. So, I mean, some of it I thought worked, some of it I didn't think worked well at all. But I also think Tom Holland's doing a great job. I understand most of these things. Like, it doesn't bother me. The Tony Stark relationship doesn't bother me. I fully believe that Uncle Ben is a part of that story. There are lines. I mean, I have people that scream at me that I'm being too forgiving. But there's a line in there when Ned says, "Does May know?" When he finds out that Pete is Spider-Man, "Does May know?" And she goes, "No, I can't do that to her after everything she's gone through."
Exactly. Yeah.
Uncle Ben.
Yeah, there was.
There's nothing in there that says to me Uncle Ben is not a part of that story. So the Iron Man elements of it. I mean, I remember at one point I read an essay, To Be Kind, on Facebook of somebody who did not like Homecoming and went on this screed about how what the movie should have been is that Tony Stark gives him all this tech, but then he decides not to use it and has to beat the bad guy with just his web shooters and his own courage. And then, then we know that Peter Parker is really Spider-Man on his own. And I said, and I read it, and I'm thinking that is what was in the movie Homecoming. That's exactly what was in the movie Homecoming. What took the stuff away from him, and he still would not be deterred, and he still went after the Vulture with just his sweats and his web shooters, and he won. That was the whole point of Homecoming.
Exactly.
A lot of fans, I mean, God love them because, the comics still exist. You can do 12 different versions of a character to me, and I don't care because I'm going to like the version that I've always liked anyway. But, unfortunately, a lot of fans cheat themselves out of a lot of enjoyment because they have an idea of exactly what they want. And if they don't get exactly what they want, then it's crap. And they're the only ones that are suffering for that. I mean, I got into a very good-natured debate with a guy on another podcast about the fact that I love the two Tim Story Fantastic Four movies. I especially loved Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Yeah, I did too.
And he is passionately against it because they didn't do Galactus right and everything. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Galactus is not a cloud." I said, "In the movie, Galactus isn't a cloud. The lightning flashes, you see the silhouette of Galactus up in the cloud. He's in the cloud. He's not the cloud, and all this." And he's like, "I can't believe you're giving them that much credit." And I said, "I'm just telling you what's in the movie. I enjoyed the heck out of it,
You've seen. See, I judge movies if they're going to be good or not by Jamie. This is see, no, seriously. after 3 years, I said,
you are too much of a crutch for this man. I'm sorry.
No.
Way too much.
No, Rod, listen. Jamie, we see a movie. Did you cry? No. The movie's gonna suck. Did you see the trailer? Yeah. Did you cry? No.
Nope.
The movie's gonna suck.
Okay.
She cries during trailers.
I do.
I've been known to have.
It's just, I get, if it's really exciting, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just any kind of emotional spike, I cry. So if there's no crying by me in a movie, it's not worth seeing.
I just saw something recently that said that makes you a Pisces. Are you a Pisces by any chance?
I'm not. I'm actually a Capricorn.
I'm an Aquarian, so I get choked up with things that, I get choked up at Star Trek episodes. That.
I'm bad. And then if an animal's involved, forget it.
Oh my God. Jurassic World? We talked the next day after the trailer came out. I cried. Oh my God. Jamie, it was just a trailer.
Well, I can't remember what I watched, but I just remember the one scene they showed, like it was like the Brachiosaurus or something while the island was burning.
Yeah.
And I saw that part like on the trailer and I was like hysterical in the theater just from that one little part.
I just saw it on TV not too long ago. It was the first time I had seen what was it called? Fallen Kingdom or something. Fallen Kingdom. And I loved it. But that scene kills me. Because that's, I went with the original Jurassic Park. I went with a female friend of mine, and she was like, the whole movie could have just been the pastoral, ooh, look at these wonderful animals for her. Because as Jeff Goldblum said, when it becomes the screaming and the running, and I mean, she didn't like that part, but she liked the idea of these animals being animals in that, Which I don't know if she hasn't seen any of the later ones, because I wonder if she'd like Blue, because I love the fact that they made Blue a hero in the last one, but they also made the Tyrannosaurus Rex a hero in the first one with Chris Pratt, that he showed up to take out the super dinosaur. I thought I love that stuff. Yeah, I love it.
All right, sir. We're just about the end of our time. Is there anything that you're working on? Is there anything that you want to pimp? Anything that you want to push out there?
I am working with an outfit now out of California called Sit Comics, SITCOMICS. A gentleman named Darren Henry is running it. He's editing it and writing. He wrote a lot of the initial issues. It's available on Comixology. It's available through mail order, and it's available in select comic shops around the country. Soon it will be available through Diamond.
Ooh.
And it will be, mass marketed out to comic shops and everything. But it's a line of comics that involve, there's some humor comics. Darren's background is in writing sitcoms. He actually interned on a little show called Seinfeld and has since produced for the Disney Channel and written and produced for the BBC and major productions. And it's always been his dream. He's a 70s Marvel kid, and it's always been his dream to do comics. And he has created a line of superhero comics with a wonderfully modern voice. He is employing writers like Todd DeZago from Spider-Man, Tom DeFalco, Roger Stern, Dave Michelini. So a lot of these guys who are sitting around with their typewriters getting rusty because the major publishers won't give them the time of day. Darren is taking advantage of that, and he's giving me a lot of opportunity to work with him and help design characters and create a superhero universe that is all ages. It's a lot of fun. It's very tongue-in-cheek at times, but also very dramatic and very action-oriented. So I'm happy as a clam. This is my wheelhouse, and I'm loving every minute of it. I'm on the book I'm doing, The Blue Baron. I'm being inked by Mr. Sal Buscema.
Ooh.
Craig Rousseau, who worked on Batman Adventures, he's doing one of the other books called Startup. A gentleman named, let's see, I'm going to be up because I'm just old and have no memory. Stephen Gordon, who worked on designs for some of the X-Men cartoons, is doing the art on a book called Headhunter, which is another superhero title. And they all have wonderfully unique voices. They are really fresh, new approaches to superheroes. And, look it up. It's sitcomics.net. And you can see an intro to some of the characters. Comixology, as I said, has these books available. And there are hard copies available either by mail order or go to your local comic shop and ask them about it. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm hoping it just grows and grows and grows, and we're building a bit of a bullpen, and it's a lot of fun titles. So jump on board.
All right, definitely. And before we wrap up, we just have a quick comment. Steve Garcia says, wow, Ron Frenz, thank you so much for your contributions to this art form. We all love you. Penciled one of my one of maybe 3 stories that literally knocked me on my ass. He's Spider-Man 248, the kid who collects Spider-Man, such a small little story, but one that had so much impact on its audience at the time. Did you have any idea how important the story was?
I knew it was a fantastic story. I knew I was privileged to be a part of it because Roger Stern just knocked it out of the park. It was all on the page. I just had to stay out of the way and let the story play out. But thank you. Was it Steve?
Yes, I believe it was. It was Steve Garcia. Yes.
Thank you for getting the title right. The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. People love the story, and that's wonderful, but it's the boy who collected Spider-Man, the kid who collected Spider-Man. It's all different versions. It's the kid who collects Spider-Man. If you say collect dead, you're kind of giving away the ending. Ooh. So, it was a wonderful story, and to this day, it's still one of the pieces that I'm very proud of. I got to work with Terry Austin, for one thing, and he did an incredible job on it. Made me look like I knew what I was doing. And it's a wonderful story to be a part of. So thank you very much, Steve, for recognizing that. And I didn't know. You hope people will respond to it the way you did. And in this case, everybody did. So, it's wonderful to be a part of.
And Ron, once again, thank you very much. Jamie, where can everyone find us each and every week, and where can they find you alone?
I screw this up each and every week. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram at The Angry Geek Show. I think we're the Angry Geeks on Instagram. And what?
Nothing. Go. You were doing perfect.
Our website, theangrygeekshow.com, and you can find me at Facebook and Instagram at thatwonderwoman.1.
And we will see you guys right here next week.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.